I just wanted to welcome everybody. So hi, thanks for coming today to our Linda and my session. My name's Virginia Pierce, and this is my colleague, Linda Heinberger. If you don't mind waving, Linda. We're presenting together. We work together here at the South Carolina State Library in Columbia. And Linda works in the State Library's Electronic Resources Department, and she has an interesting job. She serves as training and outreach coordinator, where she teaches educators around the state about DISCUS, which is a K-12, free K-12 resource initiative that the educators can use in their libraries and classrooms. So she regularly presents on topics like we're going to talk about today. And I am part of the State Library's Library Collections and Services Department, where we do reference and research services as well as collection maintenance. And I serve as the director of that department. So we're recording the session today. Just want to let you know, and if all goes well, we're going to add it to our YouTube channel. And want to tell you that we have an option, if you would like it, to turn on closed captioning. If you see the ellipses where more is down here on your screen, I've enabled closed captioning, and I think it's called subtitles on mine. If it's a feature that you would like to use, we also can view full transcript on the screen if that helps you. And I've also, here I'm adding one person. I've also gone ahead and uploaded today's presentation as a PDF. So if any of you are like, I want to write down the title she's talking about or that article that I see, everything's there. You can download it to your own computer. And you can also follow up with me if you're like, I didn't catch it, I didn't download it. I'll just shoot you an email later. So don't feel like you have to scramble around and write a lot of notes. Love for you to have your videos on so we can see each other. But if you're comfortable having it off, that's fine. Feel welcome to ask questions throughout the talk. If you feel more comfortable in the chat, we're going to try to monitor chat as we go and be able to answer your questions in a timely manner so that it's about the topic we're looking at. Okay. So today's program is the first in a series that we're doing at State Library to just share all the great resources that we have. We want everybody to know how to get to the resources we have, where it is on our website, how to use it. And this is the next program we would love to invite you to, April 7th at 12. And this one will be a little more in-depth about researching historical newspapers. We're going to cover the ProQuest historical Black papers today, but we'll spend much more time on it next session, along with a news bank database. So you can find out about that by going to the events page or our e-newsletter that comes out weekly. We will advertise it. So Linda and I want you to know that the State Library is here for all South Carolinians and for all of you statewide, no matter where you work or live in South Carolina. We're here to help you find great information, use our resources, answer research questions, that's my part, and just get you connected with everything that we have to offer here at the library. If you ever have a question, and follow up with us anytime, we're here to help. And we hope that you'll keep us, from what you learned today, that you'll keep us in mind in the future to be able to use all these resources. And to be able to access things later, you can apply online for a state library card, and then we mail it to you, and then you'll be able to get to the ebooks and the databases that we show. You can access them from anywhere in the state, and then you'd be able to borrow materials and use other services that we have. So I wanted to ask you, I'm just showing some great examples of what's to come, but most often in our history books, television, and movies that we watch, the civil rights movement is taking place in other parts of the country. And we're so familiar. There's only a handful of things that come up all the time, whether it's the Greensboro sit-ins that took place a lot of us don't know about all the sit-ins, protests, and marches that took place in South Carolina, Rock Hill, Columbia, and Charleston, just to name a few, that was very active here. Most of us learned about Brown v. Board of Education growing up, how it desegregated public schools. I only learned in the last few years about Briggs v. Elliott, which took place, it was the very first case, took place in Clarendon County, South Carolina, that contributed to Brown v. Board of Education. We've all heard about the freedom rides that went to Mississippi in the early 60s, but excuse me, I'm going to admit someone. Did you realize that the freedom rides passed through several routes through South Carolina and made stops in some of our small communities like Sumter and Winsboro, Charleston, and Rock Hill? All of us know about the Montgomery bus boycott in the mid-50s, but are you aware that similar boycotts were happening at the same time throughout the South? In particular, Rock Hill had a very effective one that shut down the bus system for a really long time. So these are just a few examples that you can find more detailed information at the South Carolina local, county, and state level of what was really happening in South Carolina during the civil rights period. Okay. These are the topics that Linda and I are going to go over today. And I'm going to start with the Black History Guide. A couple of you joined just a moment ago. I just wanted to let you know the PowerPoint is uploaded into the chat that you're welcome to look at and download, so you don't have to take notes. So in that vein, we've also got a Black History Guide that has just about everything that we're going to talk about. You have access to it. And I just wanted to show you live. Let me see if I can do new share and come over. Can you see the library's homepage?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. We're going to work a lot in the collections area today. So most of what we're going to show you, you've got the catalog, you've got the state documents, you've got the A to Z databases and ProQuest Central. But there are also subject guides that we have. And so you can come in and look at the Black History Guide that we have. You can access the newspapers from there, the African American History Database and others. And then you can click on the Civil Rights page, and a lot of the books are right here. You can go in, see the book we have to offer. It looks like it's multiple editions, but if you wanted the print work, you can come over and place a hold. Sorry, my screen is being blocked by us. You could place a hold, request it, it gets sent with a state library card, it gets sent to Columbia to pick up. There are other ways to do it. For instance, there's an ebook that you can access also. So if you're out of the Midlands, you can access the ebook, and you can also borrow it in multiple different ways. Another great feature is you can come in and click on these subject headings, which takes you straight into the catalog. And it just gives you so much more access to what we have that you can borrow in print or maybe find as an ebook. Okay. Let's see here. Let me try. Okay, back on the PowerPoint. So more books I included in the PowerPoint so that y'all could see some of the many books by and about South Carolina civil rights activists that we have. There's also lots of scholarly research that's been done. We've got all sorts of published works. We've also got dissertations and theses that have been written about communities in South Carolina that are really good. And the ProQuest Historical Black Newspapers is a relatively new resource that we've had in the last couple of years. It's accessible online with a state library card and is a really rich resource with so much coverage of South Carolina events that took place. Now, the newspapers are published all over the country, but they are covering South Carolina, whether there's editors here in South Carolina publishing out information, or they're just sending reporters here and getting information. So I'm starting to go back and forth. I am going to give you a demonstration. And just to make things easy, I like to come in here. You can go home. There's several ways to get to the Black newspapers. We've got on the collections page, the A to Z list you can access. But this is one easy way. And you can see the list of publications here over the years, and collectively they cover 1893 to 2010. My favorite thing is to do an advanced search every time. And a lot of the questions I like to share are based on patron questions. People have contacted us. One of my favorites was last fall, right before we gave a similar talk. Someone called and she said, Mary McLeod Bethune, who's from South Carolina, later moved to Florida and was influential nationally. She wrote editorials for decades. Where would I be able to find those? And I was like, well, let me try ProQuest. So this is how I would go about doing it. I put her name in quotations, and you can also search author. You have the option to do a date range. At this point, I'm not interested in specifying through a date range. I can do that later. And if you're getting a lot of noise, you can say just articles and editorials and that sort of thing, and cut out advertisements and things that might come up that are muddy in the waters in your results. But this is a pretty easy search. And all of the ones that have her name highlighted are titles that she's done. And you can come in, it's real easy. You can kind of see, okay, this was published in the Chicago Defender. And if you want to look at the article, you can see this is her tagline for each one, and that she's writing some really great information. It says she published this one in May of 1955. Another nice feature is that you can look at the ProQuest usually just shows you the article in the result, but you can go out to the page where it came from and even look at the whole issue for the context that it came from. One of my other favorite features is that it also recommends other articles that are related to the one you're looking at. So I'll go back to results. Just to kind of fiddle around with your results, you can do a filter date range at this point and see the decades where it was a lot of activity. So sometimes I just click on this bar, and then if I want to see them chronologically, I could say oldest article first, and it will update that. And she's writing in the 20s all the way up through the 50s and 60s, which is pretty cool. Let me show you another search. If I want to modify that search, I can go back and it remembers me. But if I want to find something a little more local, there was an editor. Has anybody heard of John McCrae? He was an editor for the Lighthouse and Informer in Columbia, South Carolina, during this time period. And I could say, well, what did John McCrae write in the editorials? He's covering South Carolina information. I like to put South Carolina in there. You probably don't have to. And I have to spell it right. Okay. And at this point, I'll just show you how this looks. You could do a specific date range, and I could just say, how about I search, January 1st, 1950 through the end of that year, December 1st, 1969. What was McCrae writing during this time. Okay. Oh, he says he doesn't like me. What did I do? John McCrae. Let's see. I don't know what I did, but let me go back out and I'm just going to set all dates because there's something it doesn't like about what I did. That's okay. And this is part of searching is you got to try and try again until you get what you want. And it is fussing at me. Let's see. Okay. Great. So you can see the dates that he's active, something going on where maybe he wasn't sending the articles out onto the groups. I like I said before, I like to reorder them by date, kind of look at things chronologically. And you can even filter the date range down. Let's see. It's 41. Oh, my original thing, I was like, let's just look from 1950. So I could cut out that early area and update my dates. And then you can go in and look at articles chronologically that way. So this was an interesting one, and we're going to kind of touch on this again. South Carolina parents seek to eliminate school bias. And this is talking about, we're going to show you a federal document later. This is talking about the Briggs v. Elliott case that took place in the court case was in the Eastern District of South Carolina in 1951. So it's really interesting to kind of look at the documents that we have and also other primary source documents in our newspapers and kind of get lots of information when you're doing research. And I didn't ask everybody, but some of you might be researchers or librarians or college level students. So there's something for everyone in here, no matter what approach you're taking, whether you're helping someone else find information or doing this on your own. So I do love to see his. Go back to, I learned about, so like I said, every time somebody asks a question, I'm going to go clear my form and start over. I learned about somebody new from South Carolina. So in some other searches I was doing, there was a gentleman named Esau Jenkins, who is not a nationally known figure now. He might have been then. And maybe that's just me. I just don't know who he is. I like to put things in quotes so I don't get a different Esau or Jenkins. And I'll put South Carolina in. And he was a grassroots person who was doing work in Charleston at the time. And I'm not trying to say he was the author. These are things about him and work that he was doing. So not a whole lot of results, but there's some really good results. And it's just kind of showing me 1956 to 1976. Let's see. Kind of wanted to look at 1960. Let's just narrow it down. Oh, I thought this was a great article. So unknown heroes. So I think this is one awesome thing about the newspapers. This article happens to be written by Martin Luther King, but he's talking about all of the people who are involved in this movement. And he singles out two people from South Carolina. And so he talks about Mr. Jenkins from Johns Island. Mr. Jenkins actually initiated the citizenship schools that happened in Charleston. And these were secret schools that were going on. And it's just kind of touching because he's saying it's not just me, it's not just South Carolina Leadership Conference. There are so many people involved in this that are doing work to progress African American rights, equal rights, and that sort of thing. So this is a really good article. If you wanted to download this, you're like, I really like this one, it will download straight to your desktop. You could rename it. And then when you open it, it's nice and clean and ready to go if you're going to use that or send that to somebody else. And then I don't think I showed you this. You could get a citation over here and choose from a variety of citations. You could email that one to yourself. You could print it, all kinds of different options. And another nice thing is this was on 2 different pages, and ProQuest puts all of it together. The articles are all collected together for you. So that was a whole lot of work on their part to make it easy for us. We don't have to go hunt down that continued page in the newspapers. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Think I'm doing good on time, Linda? Couple more minutes, maybe?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, good. I'm going to show you one more thing. There's so many things. This is what's hard to kind of narrow it down, but I had a couple of options I could show you today. Talking about the citizenship schools. If you knew of a topic that you wanted to, so I'm going to go back, I'm going to clear out my form again. And you're like, well, okay, I just want to see what citizenship schools were happening in South Carolina. And that was to help people with literacy in order to be able to vote. Okay. So we're getting low results, but that's not always a bad thing. We're probably getting 17 really good results in the search, the very specific search that we're doing. If you wanted to just take out the South Carolina part and see nationally what was going on in the South and citizenship schools, you could. So you can go back and modify your search. Let me see which one. Full citizenship is what I'm looking for. It remembers me. Getting a couple different results. We had run into this before where you like, oh, let me go back and do the exact same search. Doesn't always happen. But Septima Clark, somebody we're going to be speaking out about quite a bit, Charleston educator. And there's a good article about her. She was influential in the citizenship schools. Each time I look at the results and I'm trying to help somebody else find information or I'm just interested in it, I'm gathering great information and data, who, what, when, where, in order to refine my searches, make them better for next time, throw in another term. There's a Charleston hospital worker strike. And once you search that, it will show you, oh, Mary Moultrie was the leader of the local workers union. You can kind of start building upon better and better searches and getting out there and getting more information. I'd be glad to show more at the end if we had time, but let's move on to another topic. And if you ever have questions, please just reach out to me or the reference desk and we'll be able to help you. Okay. Share. Linda, I'm going to stop share and you're going to, I think it's your turn to talk about ProQuest ebooks.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Virginia. I just absolutely love the historical Black newspaper collection. It's just so amazing. You just feel the history and things that were actually being published and coming out in the time. So those are great primary resources there. So I am primarily on the discus side of the house at the State Library, as Virginia mentioned. Some of you know me. I work with Patricia and Desiree in the discus office. I'll be covering 2 different databases here today. The first one we're going to look at is actually on this, the South Carolina State Library side of the house and their collection, and that is accessing it from the State Library webpage. Here is the Ebook Central Collection, and I'm going to access it quickly here for you to see this one. Some of you, if you're in public libraries, academic libraries, you may actually have your own subscriptions to this. This is something that is also available throughout the state of South Carolina for those that have the state library card, as Virginia had mentioned earlier. But we're going to look first within eBook Central. It actually covers authoritative ebooks from of a wide variety of topics and subjects. And you can see that from the browse subjects here in the center, right underneath the search window here. But we are going to focus today on the civil rights, particularly in South Carolina. And sometimes it can be a little intimidating if you're not looking at a database that is, you know, all about civil rights or all about African Americans, where it's a little bit more difficult to maybe limit, but you don't want to rule these out. Some of the broader databases, just coming up with some good terminologies to be able to narrow it down to the South Carolina piece. You know, what are some of the connections of people and figures? So the ProQuest eBook Central collection really does extend your access to books across that timeline. So I'm going to actually start out by showing you within this, you are able to look at the view how-to videos there on the left, or FAQs. If you want some additional assistance, you can certainly call the reference desk there at the State Library, and Virginia will be glad to have her staff assist you with additional help there. But I want to show you first, if you already know a person or a figure, a key figure, and we're just going to do Septima Clark as our initial search, just to sort of piggyback off of Virginia's talk there. This actually, the title that comes up here is the first one, is the one that you might have seen on Virginia's slides in some of the books that we have physically in our collection at the State Library, in the print collection. And I want to kind of point out to you too some of the features of the software itself inside this ebook collection. It is a very powerful collection. Notice when I first searched on Septima Clark, we have a tab on the left that says book results just above our results, and chapter results there. And book results are great if you're wanting to kind of get an idea of, you know, what books that particular figure is mentioned in. It's kind of hard to tell though, when you look at some of these broader titles, you know, where might she be within one of those books? For instance, Why Community Matters, Connecting Education with Civic Life. So the nice thing about this software is you can then zero in on the chapter results using this tab just above your search result list. And it will actually pull the chapters in which she is mentioned. So that's a great time saver. You know, we used to go and we still do, because those of us that love books don't mind doing this, but when you're going to the print collection and you're pulling the print book off the shelf and, you know, kind of flipping through the chapters or looking at the index, this is nice because this is a great shortcut within those, within the ebooks for you to see there. I'm going to click back on the book results tab there. I'm going to go ahead and go into the Freedom's Teacher, The Life of Septima Clark. I've made an attempt to enlarge this a bit. Sometimes when I do that, it distorts the screen, so I may have to go back, but I want you to be able to see what I'm pointing out here. So you are always able to, this is actually ProQuest vendor, just as the historical Black newspapers that Virginia showed you. So a lot of those great advanced search features and filters are also will look similar here within this database. And it's nice when you actually go into a title of interest. I'm going to click on Freedom's Teacher. I'll just scroll down just to orient you a bit here. It will always tell you about the availability, whether the book is in use, whether it's available. It'll tell you a description of the book and then break out each chapter. And notice on the right, you are able to download by chapter here in this particular book. Some of those capabilities will vary. within a book, if there are books that have separate copyrights or e-publishing licenses and that type of thing. So you can always check to see, what kind of restrictions might be on a particular book if you're looking to download and utilize it in that way. Notice also on this book detail page along the right side, you have related tags that go along with this book. So if you wanted to see other books in the collection, civil rights, NAACP, or other recommended titles there as well. Let's go ahead and click on the, we're going to click on the read online just under the figure there on the left of the cover of the book. And at this point, I might have to reduce the size of my screen just for you to be able to see everything that I want to point out to you. So the book loads and opens along the right-hand side of the frame. As you see there, there are some wonderful tools just across the top of that book that will give you downloading, print options, linking options, citation icons. You'll be able to zoom in, zoom out, etc. These are very good and accessible icons for all readers there. And notice as well, once I've clicked on the read online button, when you can see just kind of a breakout of all the chapters that are listed here. But it's very nice if you're looking for a specific aspect within this book. For instance, a lot of the work that Septima did in South Carolina, particularly with the NAACP and trying to really fight for equal pay and equal salaries for both the Black and the white educators in South Carolina, or other aspects of organizations and pieces she worked with. If you want to look up maybe information about literacy and how she really put forward so much effort to have that literate citizen piece together. But you can search within the book. You'll notice right here on the top, when you search within the book, that's going to help you drill down a little bit closer just to those areas that are going to talk about the aspect. And as Virginia said, you may be a researcher yourself that wants to do this, or maybe you're showing a patron, maybe you're helping your own student, maybe in high school or even in college, locate information. So when I searched there, you'll see that it gives us a nice metric here with the blue. Virginia pointed that out in her session with the time periods in the historical newspapers. You could kind of see what time periods the separate people had published that were more prolific within the time period. The same is true here. I can kind of tell that chapter 5 is going to be dealing with NAACP aspect a lot more specifically, or in more count anyway, than maybe some of the other chapters. So that kind of helps you to drill down as well. So if I go ahead and click on this chapter, notice that it's going to show me, it takes me on the right-hand side to that part of the page where the first mention of NAACP is, but then also all the results along the left will be a very easy access point to other pages there in the chapter. Another thing that you can do within your books and eBook Central is go directly out to your table of contents there on the left with your little smart menu there of your table of contents. And within that, many of the books still have a traditional index. If that's something you just want to be able to glance at almost in the paper format, as you see here on the right. And it is very easy to utilize that index as well. So if you prefer, it's easier on the eyes perhaps, if you prefer to go that route, you could simply look, if you're interested in the aspects of Black churches. For instance, you can go to page 36 just by going up just above your index there into the toolbar. You'll see go to page. I can type in my page 36 here and enter, and then go right into that section or that page within the book. So there's just a lot of great flexibility within this software. And you can also go back and conduct a broader search if you want to go in and maybe you don't really know a particular figure, but you do want to be able to, search more broadly, you can go in and type a search such as civil rights. And I'll just go ahead and do a broad keyword search here, civil rights in South Carolina. And sometimes it is fun, just like in the old days, browsing on the shelves, to be able to browse through and see some of the key titles within that. Notice the newspaper wars here. I did want to point this one out to you because this is something that really ties in well with what Virginia was mentioning, because there's an entire book that talks about the newspapers that are being published from the different angles, from the Black historical newspapers and the white newspapers. You did get a very different story and very different headlines on what was actually taking place. So that will wrap up my section there. If anyone has any questions, please put them in chat, and I'll go ahead and stop my share for you, Virginia.
Thanks. That was great. Okay. Go back to Linda's. In the PowerPoint, it also helps you, Lindy walked you through this, but if you can't remember later and you download this, it gives you information about how to find it again. Okay, so I want to share with you some things that we have in the collection that you can use. And we have an extensive and unique collection of state documents. They're published by state agencies, and at our library, which is the most comprehensive collection of state documents in South Carolina, ours date back to the 19th century and go up to, we're collecting them every day now. We have over 100,000 print items in the state documents collection, and about 40% or 40,000 of those are available in this online depository. Some of them they're born digital, or they're published on state agency websites that we harvest, or we've digitized them and put them up for you to make them easier to find. This is available on the collections page that I pointed out earlier. So just to show you a couple of great examples that we have, excuse me, let me push this up here. Our acts and resolutions. So we have historical, this is one of our most significant parts of our state documents collection. We not only have the present South Carolina codes, our codes go back, some of them are original and some of them are republished, but it goes back to 1790 when we became a state. And we also include all the acts and resolutions volumes, the House and Senate journals, so very rich collection that you can access by coming to visit or calling us, and we can get help you with that. So some of the past laws that are no longer in existence are still recorded here. I was reading about Septima Clark in her autobiography, and she was talking about getting fired because of a new state law. And I thought, well, I could probably go in there and find the law. In 1956 and 57, they passed two different laws. The first one was making it illegal to be an educator in a school district and also being a member of the NAACP. So Septima Clark was about 59 years old, had been teaching for decades. She said at this point, a lot of people had to just relinquish their membership in order to keep their jobs and take care of their families. She said, I'm at a point in my life, I'm gonna do the affidavit that I'm maintaining my membership, and she was fired from the Charleston School District. But it's kind of ironic because the whole deal was to try to squelch any kind of civil rights activism. For her, it just gave her time to blossom and be more active and take a larger leadership role. In fact, Martin Luther King called Septima Clark the mother of the movement. She did so much once she had been fired. So if you're interested in, there's so many more like this, you can go in and read the actual text that was passed by the General Assembly and see what they had to say. So there's probably a similar law later where they repealed it in another time period. So that's in our General Assembly area. There are others like State Department of Education and other educational groups. So this is a 1954 report produced by the State Educational Finance Commission. Have y'all heard of the equalization schools that were happening? So early 50s, we get a lot of calls about this, right? I want to research my equalization school that's from my community. The building is still there, but no, it's no longer being used because they built a new school. So this all happened in the early 50s because Briggs v. Elliott and Brown v. Board of Education were challenging the separate but equal status in schools. So Governor Burns got a 3-penny tax passed to raise funds to build new schools. This is kind of this publication is to promote how they were making everything better, but keeping things separate but equal. It's got some fantastic photographs. This is showing the Clarendon County schools that were outdated and how they had built new schools, and lots of communities all over South Carolina that you can go in there and look. And this is a digitized record that you can come in and click on that link, and it would take you to the record that you could download and view this online or download it for yourself. The Office of the Governor records, we have published materials. Archives has archival internal records from the various agencies. So all of our are published. And these records include inaugural addresses that date back to the 1890s, state of the state addresses, some date back to the mid-19th century, proclamations, pardons, and executive orders. So one kind of interesting aspect that maybe we don't always think about is kind of seeing what the political figures at the time were talking about and writing about. And so Strom Thurmond and James Burns in this time period are talking a lot about race, separate but equal, civil rights activism and things like that. So they're kind of giving you that alternate viewpoint from the activist perspective. And though this document in the middle, you might not pay attention to it, just like, oh, it's an emergency order in 1968. What does that mean? I looked up the date, and it was martial law was established 5 miles around the city of Columbia, April 9th, 1968. And that was the day of Martin Luther King's funeral. And cities all over the country were worried about protests and unrest in their communities. They closed the businesses. It's all in the newspapers. It's really interesting. So this unassuming document is kind of representing what the governors did that day to close everything down. And there's so many executive orders that we have in our collection. They go throughout the civil rights period. And a lot of them are in direct, they create a state of emergencies for the Orangeburg massacre after it happened, during protests at Voorhees College in Denmark in 1969, and throughout the several months Charleston hospital workers strike in May in 1969. It went from May to July. So you can read all of these and why that happened. Here are a couple more examples. I've already talked about a few, but this just links you out to where you can locate them. Various organizations who are producing literature during that time, talking about schools and segregation. School directories are very rich, other court cases that happened. And one nice thing to know, and if you had asked me last year, I wouldn't have known this. We have so many reports at the state and federal level that report civil rights compliance, trying to implement desegregation in schools and housing equality, justice equality, all of these different areas of our lives. And we're still writing reports into the 21st century for it. So our federal documents collection, I'm going to speed up just a little bit, has some really fantastic things at the national level. This is just a little photograph of the shelf space in our federal docs at the United States Commission on Civil Rights. It started in the late 50s, ended in the early 1980s. And this document right here, I'm going to show you, was, there's a couple more examples, did a study on voting in 1961. And it does have local county level study information from McCormick, Calhoun, and Williamsburg counties, just talking about how there was a lot of voter suppression in those counties. And they said just the fact that we are not getting complaints doesn't mean there's not a problem in those communities. People are just intimidated to even try to vote. So things are changing real fast after that. If you wanted to read the argument by the Briggs v. Elliott lawyers, and this is the side of the petitioners, including the Briggs, before the Supreme Court, you can read the entire text. This happened in 1953, and I might have mentioned this before, but I apologize. Ours was the first case. The petition was submitted in 1949, struck down in Charleston, South Carolina, went all the way to, they appealed, went to the Supreme Court, and then this case was bundled in and was argued with the Brown v. Board of Education and helped overturn segregation in schools across the whole country. Interesting, kind of like the governor's records. This is the case down in Charleston that the school district won, and they said they threw every good lawyer they could get to maintain the status quo and to keep segregation in the schools. And you can read the brief of what happened in that court case and statements made by the segregationist lawyers of what they were trying to maintain in South Carolina at that time. So just kind of interesting to kind of get the different perspectives and the context of what's happening. A couple other different reports that we have in the federal collection are a 1977 report talking about the process of desegregation and integration of schools. And then things you don't think about. This one is equality in municipal services, trying to get sewer, water, roads, sidewalks into minority communities and what they were trying to do at the time. So it's really fascinating to read. A couple more examples. Going into the 21st century, we're still writing about the report, implementing civil rights. And now we've got some more time, and Linda is going to talk about the African American History Database, and that would be it for us, and you could ask questions afterwards. Let me stop sharing here. Everybody still with us? Okay.
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry, I was trying to get my old screen back up here. Hopefully everybody can see. So when we discussed before, and I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera back on as well here. When we discussed before the database with the ebook collection, that one is strictly for access through your South Carolina State Library card. But you can also find with the African American collection that we're going to go through here. I am going through the state library, but this one is also available from the Discus website as well, and from public libraries that throughout the state, and of course academic libraries. And this one is the African American History collection. And one of the reasons, again, we wanted to highlight this one is that it's a hugely comprehensive database. So it does go back 500 years of African history and American history. So I just want to do like 3 quick little searches to kind of show you how you can, again, narrow down and get some of that South Carolina impact with the different figures, et cetera there. So you do have browse features and search features. So if you're just wanting to browse something overall, you can see along the right side here, the browse resources gives you topic centers, timelines, etc. Again, they are from a more national viewpoint. So if you are just browsing timelines, I can go into the timelines section, and I'm going to go down to the civil rights timeline, just the broad general civil rights timeline. Notice it covers 1865 to 1973 here. And, we're going to be getting information from all different states and different areas there. But if you want to narrow this a little bit more so that you can just focus on the South Carolina, you can actually go in to enter keyword and search just within that timeline as well. So that is one way to actually take all of those different topics and kind of narrow it down to what would have been happening during that same decade or that same year within South Carolina. This is a great tool if you are trying to maybe get a good broad view of what was happening nationally, but you're looking for maybe some good search terms to be able to do a more tailored search as well. So that's another good use of the timelines. Also, if you look, I'm just going to go back home here to get us back to the home page of this database. You're also going to be able to go in and do direct searches. And once you do a direct search, you will be able to see tabs across the top for various types of information. So I'm just going to use the Freedom Riders. Oops, I misspelled it here. Sorry about that. Mistyped it. So Freedom Riders, as an example, you can see, depending on your search across the top, the tabs that are available will be in blue that actually have that format of information. You can also search, go directly from browse to go into particular video collections and those pieces. But it's nice here because, again, you're able to kind of see what is available within the primary sources that are here. The images, videos. If I click on images, for example, you're able to see some of the different photos and pictures. If we go into the routes of the Freedom Riders, we see a map here in our images as well. And this does outline the actual map along and through the coast and through South Carolina for you to be able to see some of those key towns that were that Virginia also mentioned when she was talking about the Freedom Riders there. There are a lot of different download opportunities, saving and printing, sharing this out. So if you are working with maybe a patron, maybe your own research, or working with the school, you have those options to work with as well. And then finally, I'll just do one more quick search. This one is very robust. We will be doing another full training of this on the Discus platform. So you want to watch out for that coming up next month. We're going to be doing a more in detailed search option piece, but you can also go in and search directly once again if you have additional key terms that you want to combine. And again, let's see. Yes. So if you want to maybe do an additional search as we did in our ebook collection, you're able to kind of see, again, we're getting a lot of information about the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, just for baseline information, and then some specifics throughout the nation. But if you're wanting to maybe see, you're interested in Septima Clark and her piece, but you're wanting to see what other key people were involved with your topic, notice on the right, you can also narrow with these results. So you could just click on biography here on your right, and now see that some other key people, such as Majeska Simpkins, Thurgood Marshall, etc., that played into different pieces of advancing and working with the NAACP. So you can take advantage of the browsing, the direct search, narrowing the results, and also just different search filters as you're using this database. And I'm going to pause there for a moment just to see if there are any questions from anyone. I'm going to go ahead and stop my share here and give anyone the opportunity to ask questions.